All right, so we've gotten a little bit of information about the upcoming Star Wars television show Skeleton Crew, which we now know will be premiering in early December of this year. And I gotta say, I actually have a theory on how the show is going to connect to the greater Star Wars universe, and I think we got our first hint in Ahsoka Season 1. Before we get that, however, I want to recap some of the things we know about the show officially and some of the news which has come out over the past few weeks. Notably today, probably yesterday by the time you're watching this video, we actually did get a new set of official images for the show, mostly showing off the kids, including, again, quite strangely, a four-limbed Ortolan, at least I think that's what that is. And it's pretty clear to me that the show is trying to go the Stranger Things route, where we do have a somewhat substantial mystery, but where the focus is really childhood, growing up, Spielbergian adventure. Anyway, the magazine People also put out an interview with Jude Law where they talked more about the show. The article reiterates that the official synopsis is when four kids make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet, they get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home, meeting unlikely allies and enemies will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. Jude Law says regarding the show that the first word that comes to mind for him is joyful, that it was interesting seeing the children maneuvering through places where they shouldn't be, and that seeing children in a Star Wars environment is thrilling and very unique. Anyway, there's more about how the kids have new speeder bikes, how the show tries to play homage to the original trilogy, but you can read the article for yourself. One thing the article did, which I'm almost certainly overthinking, is on several occasions refer to Star Wars as an intergalactic franchise. Now, probably they're using intergalactic there simply because it's a space word and Star Wars, but intergalactic means between galaxies or relating to more than one galaxy. Now, I'm not basing this video off that wording, it was just kind of a nice surprise, because my theory is that Skeleton Crew is going to tie in quite closely with Ahsoka. Now, when Skeleton Crew was first announced, it was described as sort of a Lost in Space series, and we know one element is that the kids are trying to get their way back home, so something has taken them away, they need to fight their way back. The parallels to Ahsoka there are obvious, a show which was all about rescuing Ezra and unwillingly Thrawn from Peridea. And even if you read the synopsis that I mentioned earlier, four kids make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet and get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. I think the implication there is that it's a strange and dangerous Star Wars galaxy, the one we spend most of our time in, but perhaps not. Here's my theory, and I've actually outlined this somewhat before, but not fully. So yeah, I think the show probably does start with a mysterious discovery on a seemingly safe home planet. That probably sets the adventure in motion and gets Jude Law and the kids in space. We know that Skeleton Crew takes place in the Mandoverse. It's set around the same time as The Mandalorian, as Ahsoka, and Ahsoka presents a moment which I believe will set the Skeleton Crew adventure down its dark and mysterious path. Let's go to either episode 4 or episode 8. The Eye of Sion is an incredibly unique vehicle in universe. It's one of the only, really the only that we know of, which can travel the distances between galaxies. The Purrgil can do it, maybe there are other ships which can as well, but the Eye of Sion is the first one we've heard of so far. And the actual jump mechanism is very, very different. It's an effect that I really like. It almost feels like the ship, just through sheer energy, is breaking through the fabric of space. And I suppose that's always the case when a ship does an FTL jump, but in Ahsoka we see the impact the jump has on nearby ships, although they were sort of in the way, so that's less interesting. But also space as a whole. The ship has, again, broken through space. There's visual impacts left. They do fade over time, but we've never seen that before with hyperspace jumps. It really does have a tearing feel to it. And this is only one point we've seen. My theory is that the Eye of Sion's hyperspace jump either to Peridia or on the return trip home could have greater effects across the galaxy. I imagine the ship as being like the biggest boat in a harbor, and one that's also traveling very fast. It's making a tremendous wake, which will impact any other vessel in the vicinity. We've already seen how the Eye of Sion impacts ships directly in its path, but I imagine the results could be even stranger for a vessel in hyperspace. So my guess is that Skeleton Crew starts off with a dangerous but still pretty low stakes adventure. For some reason, the kids, as mentioned, along with Jude Law, are sent off the planet. Then their ship is either disabled or taken somewhere strange by the Eye of Sion. I can imagine what I'll just call the hyperspace wake of the ship, maybe even carrying them somewhere. Probably not to Peridia, although perhaps it could be to the other galaxy, but maybe somewhere in between. You know, shows like Stranger Things, like, again, these Spielbergian mysteries I've referred to, the Goonies, they often do have that element of discovery, of finding something which is hidden. In the Goonies, you know, there's that treasure map. In Stranger Things, it's the great government conspiracy that's sort of operating in the background. I don't think it's a mistake that this show is coming out in this era and right now, because at least when it was planned, you know, Disney was building up to the Mandoverse and the eventual Mandoverse film, so I don't think the connections are in any way accidental. So the next logical question is probably, well, how does this tie into everything else? And that's a good question, and I'm not sure. There are a lot of ways that they could fully ingrain this with the story of Thrawn and Ahsoka if they so choose to. It could be that the kids stumble upon Thrawn's return, you know, some way on their journey back. They discover this hyperspace wake, what caused it, and they're the ones who eventually call the cops, the New Republic, on Mithra Nirodo. Or it could be that they're the ones who pick up Ahsoka and Sabine from the other galaxy, or even find a way to make travel back and forth more reasonable without needing to cannibalize a Super Star Destroyer for your engine. Those are possibilities. Are they likely? I don't think so. I think that if they make this show too connected with the greater conflict, it sort of risks taking away from the adventure, coming-of-age tone that we know they're trying to go for. So I think instead it will sort of just be a standalone adventure set during the same time period with the same events, putting things into motion. And by the way, there is also in Star Wars canon a somewhat similar event. In the High Republic, in fact, there was a hyperspace disaster which didn't so much impact travel, but we saw shards of a ship essentially flying through hyperspace, causing massive destruction. But that's all I've got, guys. Let me know if you agree with my theory, if you think it's out to lunch. I look forward to reading your comments down below.